Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast. I'm your host, Joanne Crone, joined here by the lovely Bree Tucker.
Why, hello, everybody. How are you?
I was just pulling my microphone away from my face. I'm like, if you're watching us on Instagram right now or on the YouTube, you cannot see my face because my microphone was like covering it. It was so big. It was like way up by my mouth. You couldn't see my lovely red lips. How could you see my red lips?
Well, that's true that. Like you and I have very different
red lips
views on our camera of us, like how it, like yours is
you're a little
more
closer to the camera. Mine's a little farther back. It actually isn't a choice on my part. It's just whatever my camera shows up at that day. I'm happy with it. My camera picks my own angle for sure.
Picked what it was going to do. So
for sure. But we are talking today about parenting rules. You know, those unsung rules that new parents judge other parents with, and the rules that they say, oh my gosh, when I'm a parent, I will never do that to my kids, right?
Well, because we're all experts. We're all experts. And quite honestly, this episode spawned because we had a Instagram post that you did. Mm-hmm. And I would love to take a moment to share the inspiration for this episode. So this was a stitch from a, I found it in the Today Show. So let's.
I don't mean to ruffle feathers with the moms of Instagram or the dads, but I have the opinion that if you let your kid use a tablet or a screen while out to dinner, you're not a bad parent, but it's bad parenting. Thoughts? Now we're only 8 weeks into the parenting game, so we can be very cocky, but
I want us to be a coloring book family.
We're going to be a coloring book family.
I had to color on the tablecloth when we went out.
Yeah, right. Who had to color on the tablecloth and then you had to rip it out because you wanted to save it for, art class? Let me know.
So he does, let's give him the benefit of the doubt there. He does say we're only 8 weeks into it, so we could be cocky. He knows this is a strong opinion that he might be very wrong about. But so many people lashed out against that one, feeling personally attacked.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that happens a lot in parenting. And so that's, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves on this. That is what we're going to be talking about today, how we can get ahead of ourselves in parenting. I think we've got crap figured out when we don't. And the rules that we are going to tell you, you can break.
You can break these rules right away. So let's get on with the show. So we're talking about parenting rules that you can break, like these rules that we kind of hold ourselves to. And I think that the bad part comes when we start judging ourselves as bad parents, when we don't follow these rules, like thinking that we are doing something that will be so detrimental to our kids in the future if we don't stick by these rules. And one of these rules we teased in the opening, which is that you shouldn't let your kids have screens, especially at restaurants. Right, Bree? Like, this rule.
Yeah. Oh, I would say these are the things, like these rules. I am like today. I think that these rules are the things that bring in so much guilt. Mm-hmm. Yes. And it's guilt for a million different reasons. But in this one about the whole restaurant thing, it's guilt that everybody's judging me and saying I'm a lazy parent.
Yes.
And I will admit, so my kids are teens now. Actually, I've got a senior graduating high school and I have a junior in high school. And I would say because of that, screens for kids were just becoming a thing when my kids were little. Like they were just starting to come out with little tablets for kids. They weren't that big of a thing. So I will admit when my kids were really little, I had that same thought process. We will only play games when we go to the restaurants. I'm going to have activity bags and we'll never do screens.
And how long did that last?
Well, yes. Okay. I did manage to make that last quite a while, but that was also because we didn't go out a lot. We weren't a going out often family. Like we would go out like once or twice a month. Like that was it. So just getting to go out was enough cool stuff for my kids. But now, flash forward to teens, and we go out a lot. They're on their phones a lot. They are. Mm-hmm. They are. And I don't make them not be on their phones because as far as I'm concerned, as long as we're still all interacting, it's fine. But I think that When I see
It-
parents out there with their kids now, like, you're trying to survive, people.
You are trying to
I'm
survive.
trying to survive. And I know that what I'm seeing as someone at a restaurant
Yeah.
is a glimpse into their life. That is
Yes.
not for sure they're 24/7. And who
It-
am I to judge what the hell's happening?
Yeah, it is a glimpse into their life. And I think it's really easy to forget how dire that survival stage really gets. Like, especially when kids are like around, like, starting at 2 all the way up until probably 10 or so. Keeping kids occupied, if you just don't want to eat at home, if you want to get out of your house because you've been stuck there all day and you are
Right.
tired of the same stuff you have and you just want to have somebody else cook for you. But here you have a kid who would like run around the restaurant and make noise like for the other diners nearby and like just not let you have a good meal. I totally do not judge the parents who have screens at the table. There are so many great screens and applications too. I mean, when my kids were that age, Toca Boca. Oh, we loved our Toca Boca. I put Toca Boca on my phone, and my kids would like,
I
especially
don't
my
even know
daughter.
what that is. What is that?
Okay. Toca Boca were these like, I think they're still around. They're educational games for preschoolers, but they have the preschoolers do actual activities through them. So it's not follow the map. It's more a free, like pieces play, but on a screen. Toca Boca Doctor, for instance, you had to go and examine your patient. And in examining your patient, one of them, I remember you tap the patient's belly, and then it was like a maze that they had to guide the medicine down like the intestinal tract. And then there was a little toot at the end. It was all well done. It wasn't gross at all. I enjoyed that game so I liked playing with my daughter, and I'm like, ooh, there was one like you tapped the mouth and you pulled out the rotten teeth. I mean, me describing it sounds really
I think you're talking about the
It was
medical
good.
side of it, but yeah. Like the point is, it doesn't have to necessarily be your kids sitting there and zombified watching a screen. But you know what? If they're doing that, you don't know what else has happened, people.
No, they might
so
have just had like a horrible tantrum for most of the day. And this is like the only time that the parents are getting peace and quiet is here at this table with the kid on the screen.
Right. So, like, all that we're saying is, first of all, we all at some point have the thought process that we've got this parenting gig down. We've figured it out. We have figured out the cheats, the little cheat codes. We've got it figured out to a T, only to find out that the next stage of parenting is not as easy as it's not figured out. The cheat codes don't work on level 2, level 3, level 4. Let's just start with that. And you know what, though, right? We were talking, you have to have that confidence, though, or else parenting is just,
Yeah, it's funny, though, because as your kids grow up, you would think it would be easier to go to restaurants with them, and it's not. Like, there are so many times, like, my husband and I decide to stay home because our kids just get grumpy at the restaurant. They'll be like, oh, there's nothing I like to eat on this menu. And then they will sit there and pout, and your whole enjoyable restaurant experience just goes down the drain. So, like, lately, me and Josh, we've just been like, how about you just make a cocktail and we'll make some spaghetti for everybody? Let's just stay in.
But I mean, like,
That's
yeah,
usually
right?
the best one.
Because what are your options? It's okay, we're going to go to McDonald's because I have a play area and the kids will be occupied and fun, but I have to eat food that I don't want to eat.
Just say, I need to go on an outside rant about McDonald's, by the way, because
let's go.
Don't feel like McDonald's tastes as good as it used to. I don't know if it's me or if McDonald's did something, but like when I bite into a McDonald's like quarter pounder, I taste nothing. I have to douse it with ketchup to even taste anything. It's horrible.
I haven't eaten anything besides chicken McNuggets and fries at McDonald's since I was a sophomore in college. So I don't know.
The fries are awful too.
Well, I would say like back in college, I started being like, ew. I mean, if you love McDonald's, hats off to you. But it's just, I could tell you that all the way back in college in the 90s, I felt like it was tasting weird.
See, I liked it. I liked it in high school. I thought it was delicious, but I don't like it
in
now.
High school. Maybe it was the town I lived in. Because I remember I went to college in a small town.
Maybe. Yeah. It was small town taste because I remember I loved it when we went to this Odyssey of the Mind competition in Ames, Iowa, at Iowa State University. And we went to McDonald's in town. It was like the best McDonald's meal I'd ever had. My first quarter pounder. It was so good. It was so good.
Yeah.
And now it's like,
But I mean,
McDonald's mid.
So back to the point. So when my kids were little, because their dad hated going out with them because he could not stand them not being quiet and sitting still and needing attention. And that was his prerogative. Okay. I get that. That was his standard. I'm not saying that it was a realistic standard, but that was his standard. So if I went out with the kids, we'd go to like Chick-fil-A for the play area or Peter Piper or whatever. Did I have good food? Hell no. But the kids were entertained. So if I wanted to go somewhere where we could actually eat, where their dad would actually join us, we had to come up with creative solutions and that's another thing too. Like oh God, my ADHD is like popping through on this one. Another thing too is that you talked about how kids would get up and run around.
Yeah.
And people might be judging you for having your kids do something on a screen, but if they only knew what the alternative was.
Yes.
Was the
You get
checking
judged.
of stuff and running around and being loud. At least they're being quiet, people.
You get judged either way. I remember we went to the steakhouse in downtown Chandler and my father-in-law set it up. It was DC's Steakhouse when it was in the old location,
I've
not the
never
new
been
location.
there. It is so nice, people. This is a posh steakhouse.
Yes, but like we went at like 5 p.m. Total like early bird dinner time because that was my father-in-law. He does not like to wait. So we had to go early. And my daughter was 3 or 4 and we're seated at a table in the back of the restaurant. There was maybe one other party there. And she was just running around the table. And I'm like, okay, just let her run around. I mean, there's no one else here. Meanwhile, this asshole guy at the other table is like, what is it? Rompus room in here? And he's making all these snide remarks.
And how'd that make you feel?
Awful. He was, I mean, you could tell. I don't usually call people assholes, and he was one.
It's an explicit episode, people. We have feelings.
Yeah, but like, it's just, you get judged either way. Like, you cannot do anything great as a parent from anybody else's outside perspective. You can't. And so break this rule. Let your kids have screens at the table because only you know the whole picture and who cares what anybody else says. They could go stuff it in their McDonald's cheeseburger. I don't know. Bringing up that story again. Oh, it made me so mad. See how mad I am? People, we're going to talk about the next parenting rule that you can break, and it has to do with when kids behave in a way you don't want them to. And we're going to do that right after this. Okay, here is a big parenting rule. I think it goes along the lines of you need to teach kids who's boss by punishing them. And other word that people use for punishing, give them consequences for their actions. And just side note, giving consequences is not the same as letting consequences happen. And giving consequences is actually code for punishing. So let's just lay that out there right there.
I think this kind of goes back to that whole thought process of that you have to be firm. You have to set hard rules. Kids need to feel pain. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean pain in the physical way. Yes, there are people that feel that way. But I'm talking about the ones that are like, listen, if they don't feel sad and hurt and upset about their punishment, then they're not going to really learn it or feel it. And it brings me back to the saying that I remember getting when I first went through my positive discipline training for parenting. Where did we get the idea that in order for kids to do better, we need to make them feel worse?
Yeah.
I think we got the idea from the 80s.
Probably.
Right?
Probably because
back to the 50s.
I think it goes back to this belief that people need to experience consequences for their actions. And a lot of
experience pain. I think that pain word is important. What do you think?
Yeah, but I don't think it is so much pain. They don't need, I think people may attribute pain to consequences. I think it's one and the same.
Right.
But with that, a lot of the things kids do, like you as an adult, don't see any immediate consequences that they're going to feel as a result of having done it. Just for example, the other night, my 15-year-old was like leaving stuff around the house. Like she left her shoes out in the living room and she didn't unload the dishwasher. And it was driving me insane because I asked her to do it. She's like, yeah, I will get to it. I will get to it.
Insane in the membrane.
Mhm.
Insane in the brain. Sorry.
But my husband was like, yeah, well, it doesn't affect anyone but herself. Like, who cares if the shoes are out in the living room? She doesn't care. It doesn't affect her. They're out of her sight. They're not in her bedroom. Who cares if the dishes aren't unloaded? Doesn't affect her. She can just unload them whenever she wants to unload them. And I was like, yes, you're right there. And also, it doesn't mean that the way to solve this issue is to give her a consequence for not doing it. Because if we think about it in our typical life, if you and I don't follow through on something somebody else wants us to do, the relationship suffers. And you are either someone's angry at you, or they're less likely to do stuff for you in the future. As parents, we are here to teach our kids that, but we don't have to teach them through pain. And I was like struggling with this all that night. I'm like, okay, like, how do we solve this situation? How do we solve the situation? When my daughter yelled across the house at me, hey, Mom, can you change your laundry from the washer to the dryer? Because in my house, we all do our own laundry, and she needed to do hers. She needed that washer to be free. And so without thinking about it, I went and I took my clothes out of the washer. I put them in the dryer. And as I'm loading the dryer, I'm like, wait a minute. Bree just sent me a meme about this. And the meme you sent me, you did. It was like,
it was Tom Cruise running really fast.
Yes,
how
Tom
my
Cruise
kid expects me to respond when they ask for something.
Yeah.
And then it said like how my kid responds when I ask them for something. And the kid was like, no, I don't know how to do that. No, it's not happening right now.
Yeah. So I was thinking about that meme as I was loading the dryer, and I'm like, hold on 1 second. Yeah. This is exactly what is going on. And so after I loaded the dryer, she was just sitting and eating a nice little snack at the kitchen table. And I told her, I'm like, hey, you asked me to unload the washer for you. And I did, because that is what people do when they are in a respectful relationship and somebody else needs the other person to do something so that somebody else could actually like do the task that they need to do. So I took my laundry from the washer and I put it in the dryer for you. And then I paused there and I'm like, does she get the point? I don't know if she gets the point. And so I added, I'm like, I am not happy about you refusing the dishwasher and picking up your shoes. And then I just left it at that. And she picked up the shoes and she unloaded the dishwasher.
Sometimes, okay, here's my thought process on that. A lot of times, kids don't understand how their actions impact others.
Yeah.
And you just need to give them that extra explanation. Like we recorded an episode earlier that aired like 2 weeks ago about a mom picking up a cup during a marathon, right? The point is that kids don't know what they don't know. So taking the time to talk to them about stuff makes so much more sense. So an example I'm going to give that's similar to that, but a little bit harsher is, so my daughter had an outfit that she wore one day that had a short skirt. And I want to say she was like 13 when it happened. And she was like, oh my gosh, check out this amazing skirt. I don't even remember how she got the skirt, to be honest with you, because she was 13. So I didn't take her to buy it. I don't remember how this happened. But she had this short skirt. She took a picture of herself and she put it on her Instagram. And I saw it on Instagram and I'm like, wow, you really love that skirt that you're in and everything. And she's like, yeah, it's really cute, isn't it? It's adorable. And I'm like, it is cute. It is a little short though. What do you think about it being like so short and everything? And we talked about it and I just said to her throughout the because she didn't see anything wrong with it. She's like, I think it's fine. I think it looks adorable. I think it's what everybody's wearing right now. Were there other 13-year-olds wearing it? Maybe, but not the majority. And I was like, I don't know. Like it kind of makes me feel a little icky, like you putting that out on the internet, because other people could look at it and they might not have great thoughts, right? And she's like, well, yeah, I guess you're right. And so we talked about it, and I'm just kind of ended with the whole like, you wanting to wear that around the house. I have no problem with that because we're here at home. But going out places like that and putting pictures like that on the internet, I don't think that I think that you might want to think about being old enough for that. We had the conversation. Definitely made an impact. She did understand what I was saying.
Mm-hmm.
2 days later, she went over to her dad's house. Their reaction was slightly different. What are you doing posting a picture like that? That short skirt made you look like, and they used some very derogatory terms that I'm not going to say on the podcast. That should never be said to a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
And then it turned into, because you posted this online, we're going to take away your apps. And they're like, you have a choice. We're going to take away your Instagram or take away your TikTok. Which one do you want us to take away? And she was like, my TikTok. And they're like, okay, we're going to take away your Instagram because clearly you care about that one more.
God, I really don't like them.
And she was so upset. What she got out of that interaction later when she came back and was talking to me about it, what she got out of that interaction was her dad and her stepmom think terrible things about her, and that the way she looks dictates what they think about her, and that whatever hurts her the most is always going to be the route they're going to go. That was what she learned from that interaction.
Yes.
And I can guarantee you their thought process was, she did something wrong. We need to make her feel pain for this consequence. And that's why they did it that way.
Yeah.
Whereas had they just had a conversation with her, it would have had a lot more impact. Now they have a very bad relationship. She doesn't trust them, and she tries to hide things from them. Why?
And if you want to know exactly how that method of discipline went, we have a podcast episode for you in the show notes that we will link to about Bree's daughter's relationship with her father and stepmom, because that is something that you need to listen to. If you have someone in your life pursuing this line of punishment, like, listen to that podcast, because oh my goodness, it does not end well overall.
So
and
our
a side
point
note
is,
too, but a side note on that I need to put in there is, when are we going to stop holding girls accountable for the actions and thoughts of males and others, especially with short skirts? Because I mean, I had the same thing with my daughter too. I just didn't want her to have to deal with all those comments. I didn't want her to, because people are rude on the internet. They are mean, they are derogatory. And when we ask our girls not to post things like that, we are trying to protect them from I'll say it again, the assholes out there who decide to comment on everything about them.
Right. I agree. Like it's another, when I talk to my daughter about a lot of stuff, she actually has a very good thought process. And I have told her, like, when I'm afraid of things, 9 times out of 10, I'll be honest with you, I'm not afraid of your thought process. I'm afraid, or your actions even. I'm afraid of the actions of others.
Yes.
I'm afraid of what others will do. And that's what concerns me. And a lot of times, like, she'll be like, oh, so like driving. Like, I'm concerned, like, I don't want you driving late at night. Why? You don't trust me? No, it's not that I don't trust you. I don't trust other people that are out after 10 o'clock at night. They more likely to have drunk drivers, more likely to have people driving aggressively, more likely for people not to see something. That's what I'm worried about. And she'll be like, okay, well, then maybe I shouldn't drive at night as much. When you have that conversation, it helps so much more than trying to make them feel the pain, is all we got to say.
Yes. And it builds the relationship. It's really about parenting for the long term here.
Yeah.
Any short-term benefits you get, they won't last. It's weight loss, When you try to lose weight fast, what happens? Everything comes back on and then some. Same with parenting. If you try for the short-term solution that fixes it for like a few hours, oh my gosh, it is going to come back to you like tenfold in behaviors that you do not want to see. And we're going to break this last parenting rule for you.
Oh, it's a
about
good one.
Messy
it's
rooms.
A good one.
Right after this. So we've gone through 2 parenting rules. You are allowed to let your kids have screens at the table. You are not required to punish them for everything. In fact, do not, because it does not give you the consequences you want for the future. And
Yeah.
our third rule is about messy rooms.
And
I
this
mean,
one people might feel strongly about, but do hear us out on. We both
hear
feel the
us
same way
out
about
on
this.
this one. If
Yeah.
you have ever walked past your child's room and you've been like, you cannot go anywhere until you clean that room, we beg you to step back and rethink that situation, because I've always been of the viewpoint that a kid needs their own space to learn exactly why it's important to keep things organized and keep things clean. Now,
Mhm.
that goes in stages. This is everything in parenting. There is so much gray area here and so much nuance. I cannot tell you just to let your 6-year-old have a messy room and let them have it forever and let them experience the consequences. That is not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that it is so much easier long term to let your kids have control over their space and let your kids develop their own systems and their own standards for how they want to live their life. My kids, yes.
I'm going to toss something in there that you said.
Yeah.
I want to clarify. You said it's so much easier for them to do this. And what I think that, to be clear on the easier part, is that you're not beating your head against the wall, constantly telling them the same thing over and over again, trying to get them to listen. It will make an impact faster, last longer if you try it this way. So that's what I would
Try
throw out
it
there.
this way. Yes. So my kids, they both had very messy rooms when they were like 6 and 7 years old. 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old. Even my son, now that he's 11, he's turning. He's making the turn now. But they get to the point in their messy room where they just can't find things anymore. They are going around the house like crazy in the morning, being like, where is my lunchbox? Where is my other shoe? Where is this? Where is that? And I know in my head, I'm like, oh, it's probably under that pile in your bedroom that you just threw everything out. The way I got through to them is every time they were stressed out, I would go in and be like, hey, I get stressed out too when I have a messy room. Do you want my help in organizing it this weekend? And we could work together on it. And each time I've asked to help, they were like, sure. It even got to the point where my daughter was like, Mom, I really need your help. I can't get under control. Like, I can't get under control. And that, I mean, is typical executive control in kids. Like, they don't know how to organize yet. They don't know how to put things in places. Nothing. Over a few years, they start to realize that, oh my gosh, right after my room is organized, I feel better. And this sinks in for them. And then they start taking it over themselves. Like my 15-year-old, her room is usually spotless on most days. And when it isn't spotless, I'm like, whoa, someone's going through something. And I'm like there to give her some more emotional support when she needs it. My son is getting there. He is realizing now how to clean his own room, how he likes things picked up, how to move things around without my help, and knowing how to do his environment. But none of those things would have happened if I just told them to clean their room.
And I want to also have you share a little bit more about something. When you help them organize, when you say like, do you want me to help you organize your room this weekend? Tell us how that looks. Are you going in and does your kid end up helping you for the first 5 minutes and then sitting on their bed while you do the rest?
No.
Okay. So tell us, like, what's that look like?
I go into their room and I'm like, hey, you want to pick some music? And like my son would usually like go through my phone, put on some AJR, and we would play AJR. And if it was like, we'd have a specific task. So one of them was
you'd help them narrow it down to a specific task.
We would take all of the clothes out of the dresser and make sure that he only had clothes that fit him in the dresser.
Okay.
And so while we were doing that, there were some things where I'm like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I want you to go through and find all the socks that match in this pile. So he needed a specific job to do, and he did need to be told exactly what to do as we were going through it. But as long as he had that direction, he did it, and he stayed there. And he's like, okay, what's next? And I'm like, oh, can you go get some garbage bags and start picking up all the trash on the floor? And that's what he would do. He would go and pick up all the trash on the floor.
Yeah, because when you walk into a really messy room, especially as a kid that doesn't have the organizational skills, right? They don't have the executive functioning to think if this, then that. It's over freaking whelming.
Yes, it is. And it's overwhelming to adults too. I think that's a lot
Yeah.
of what we get
yeah.
in organization and cleaning. We think that we have to figure out the whole problem right there instead of going in and taking these little steps of action where it's like, oh, I have a messy desk. Okay, my first thing to do is I'm going to clear off my desk and I'm going to throw away anything I don't use anymore. Okay,
Yep.
done. Then you get clarity on the problem the more steps you take throughout it. And that's what you're teaching kids when you go into clean with them. Start with
Yeah.
something little, and then you get a little bit more clarity and go the next step and the next step. And pretty soon you have a clean room.
So, all right. So here is my take on the messy room too. Because again, being divorced, having my kids in 2 households, we have 2 different setups that we utilize. And I know, right? Shocker. We have 2 different systems. In my house, I agree. Kids need to have their own space, especially in my kids' case, because they don't really, let me back this up with a little thing that they like to tell me a lot of times. They are teenagers now, so they have a bit of a dark sense of humor about the whole divorce thing. And they would say that they were homeless. They are couch surfers. They do not have a home. They have 2 places that they sleep at for a week at a time. And that neither of them are necessarily, because they ask me still to this day, Mom, what address do I put on this form? And I'm always defaulting to just put mine. Just put mine. That way that way we always know that if we're trying to figure something out, we're like, what address did we put? We would have put Mom's down. So there's that. So because of the fact that they have 2 different homes with 2 different sets of rules and all that kind of stuff, I have always had the thought process that your room is your domain. That is your space to make the way you want to look. Now, I have some rules. 1, no food in that. And do I catch my kids sneaking food in their room? Yes, I do. And when I do, I'm like, hey, what's the 1 rule we have? And they both will tell you, I can't have food in my room. Okay, do you have food in your room? Yeah. What are you going to do about it? I'll take it out. And they do that. And the only reason I have that rule is because I can't stand bugs. I don't like bugs. I don't want bugs. I just don't want bugs. Plus, my kids are gone every other week. My son is. He's gone every other week. So that room is closed for a whole week. And that's another trick. His room is messy. I don't like it. So I shut the door. So I don't have to deal with it. My blood pressure doesn't go up every time I walk past that boy's room. Right? And it's not crazy messy. It's just, it's not crazy messy, but it's messy enough that I don't like it the way it looks. So I shut the door. And then I only have I guess there's 2 rules I had. And the second rule was for my daughter. You have to have a safe path from your bed to your door in case of emergencies. That was my only other. No food. And if there's a fire, you have to be able to get out of your room and not trip on anything. That's the only things I ask. Other than that, if you want to keep your clothes in a pile on the floor and all wrinkly and messy to where you can't find stuff, that's your own problem. Yeah. I'm not helping you in the morning. When you say, I don't have any clean shirts, oh, that kind of sucks. How come you don't know if you have any clean shirts? Well, because everything's in a pile. Wow. Maybe that dresser over there or that closet would be helpful. Yeah. I'm a bit snarky, I'll be honest. But at the same time, I will always offer to help them. And my daughter probably has gone through 3 different organizational systems in her room. Every time she's like, Mom, I have too much for my space. Okay, well, they made IKEA for a reason. There's a way to find space in small spaces because she has a small room. I'm like, you want to organize it? Let's look at stuff. Let's go find what you want. And I will purchase it for you. I will come in and help, project manage it, but I'm not going to do it for you. And you're right. Over the year, that system has worked so well. And I can tell you it's worked well because my kids will tell you they feel like their space in my house is actually their space. It is theirs. They get to do it as they want. I don't come in and move stuff. I don't tell them how to decorate. They have their own space. And that's important.
It is important. It's important. I wonder a lot about the wrinkled clothes because I see my son get out of the car every day with a wrinkled t-shirt. It drives me insane.
I know, right?
I'm like, can I just spray you down? Can I spray you down? But there are, not me, but people out there who say, oh, how you present yourself matters. And I get that to an extent.
It does to some extent.
I really get that to an extent. Yeah. I was reading a book recently. It was called The Lion Women of Tehran. And it's fiction. But in it, she talks about, she goes to like this rich school. They made it out of like the downtown area where they were living poor. What happened to the family is that the father died. And so the mom, like she couldn't work. She didn't have that money. So they had to move to another area. And then uncle came in and married mom. And then they got to go to the rich area again. There's a lot going on there. But one of the things that the main character, Ellie, she talks about is she's like, her friend from the downtown area comes into the school unexpectedly, Homa, and Homa's wearing like hand-me-down stuff and things that aren't pressed by the maids. Like Ellie has her clothes pressed by the maids, and she can tell everybody who quote unquote fits in because they have this really pristine appearance, not because they work harder, but because they have the money to outsource all of this labor to other people. And so I think a lot like about that recently, and I'm like, okay, so you could tell wealthy by they have their clothes pressed because they have this money, and other people are like trying to put this on their kids by saying that their kids should like press and iron their clothes and everything, where not the average Joe has that amount of time to put into their clothing. They have other things they need to think about or leisure activities they need for their own mental health or whatever. But I think about that a lot when I see parents get a little uppity about the wrinkled clothes and the appearance. Is it trying to show the status or trying to it's a class thing, I think
it is. I think it is to some extent. I mean, I don't know. I would love to hear from our audience. Like, tell us what you guys think about this one. Give us this feedback. Like, to me, I do view it that way as well. And again, that's from my own upbringing and my own experiences, things I've had said. You know, if someone doesn't have the hair bow if the girl doesn't have the hair bow that matches the shirt, that matches the leggings, that matches the socks, that matches the shoes, then they must not, have enough money. And I don't agree to that, but I do know that's a thought process in the town in which we live in because it has certain aspects. But
and I think it's changed too throughout time. Like here in the Phoenix, Arizona area, we are big in the tech industry, tech bros who show up in jeans and like sweatshirts. So like you walk into a fancy.
High schoolers show up in pajamas, Joanne.
Yeah.
I know that. My kids go to the first time they've ever gone to school without a dress code has been high school. And the crap my kids wear to school. And when I go and pick them up before they were driving and I would have to pick them up and I would see and I would be like, okay, sorry, I'm going to a billion things on this, but I would see my daughter leave in pajama pants and an oversized t-shirt and slippers.
I know.
Slippers.
I know you had this. I know.
Right. And I'm like, how is that okay? And then I'm sitting there at pickup and there's 20 other people that come out dressed the same way.
How
and
they
I'm like,
fit in. Yeah. And you cannot tell.
They have blankets, Joanne.
I know.
It's so weird.
That's what they do. Yes.
So
you can't tell anymore. You can't tell in the terms of class. Like I talked with this about my husband because I mean, you could walk into a fancy car dealership and you have salespeople have no idea judging a customer and their worth because people dress horribly here. They dress horribly, especially in East Valley.
17 degrees for like a month straight. Give us a break.
Yeah, no.
We own
it's funny
one
though.
sweater. So collectively, people, all of Phoenix, we own one sweater. We all share it. It just goes between houses.
I own so many sweaters, but I put them on when it's like 90 degrees because
I was going to say a day that it drops below 70. Those are the single digits.
I love sweaters. I love it. Well, we hope that we gave you some relief today, some rules that you could take out and not worry about so much. And knowing when you don't worry about them, you're really doing the best for your kids. We also included a link in the show notes to the Stop Doing checklist. So if you want some more rules, you could just like push to the side. There are 5 more in that checklist. So go and check it out. And until next time, remember, the best mom's a happy mom. Take care of you, and we'll talk to you later.